The temperature had dropped to negative 47 degrees Celsius when Nora Ven's heating unit gave its final, pitiful whine and died. She stared at the useless device, frost already forming on its metallic surface, and calculated her odds of survival. The rescue beacon had been activated 6 hours ago. Help wouldn't arrive for at least another 24 hours total. In this cold, with no heat, the mathematics were brutally simple, and they didn't favor her survival. Nora pulled her thermal coat tighter around her body, the advanced human-engineered fabric doing its best to retain what little warmth remained. She was alone in the crystalline caves of Frost 7, a moon that the Galactic Coalition had deemed uninhabitable and devoid of complex life. They'd been half right. The scraping sound came again from deeper in the cave, the same sound that had drawn her away from her shuttle before the ice storm hit. Nora's scientific curiosity had always been stronger than her sense of self-preservation. Her expedition commander had written that in her performance review. Twice. She moved toward the sound, her breath forming clouds that froze and fell like tiny diamonds. The cave narrowed, then opened into a small chamber. There, huddled in a depression in the ice, were 5 creatures that shouldn't exist according to every xenobiological survey of this moon. They were roughly the size of earth foxes, covered in downy fur that shimmered between white and pale blue. Their large eyes, too large for their delicate faces, watched her with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. But it was the smallest one that made Nora's heart clench, the runt of the group, trembling violently, its fur unable to retain enough heat to keep its small body functioning. Tavi. She named it instantly, though she couldn't say why. The tiny creature's eyes locked onto hers, and in that moment, Nora Ven made a decision that every regulation, every protocol, and every survival manual would have screamed against. She sat down on the ice. The cold bit through her coat immediately, but Nora opened the front seals anyway. "Come on," she whispered, knowing they couldn't understand her words but hoping they'd understand her intent. "I know I'm a strange alien monster to you, but I'm a warm alien monster." Tavi moved first. The little one dragged itself across the ice, using the last of its strength to reach her. Nora gently scooped it up and tucked it against her stomach inside her coat. The creature's body was alarmingly cold, its heartbeat rapid and weak. The others watched, calculating with whatever intelligence their species possessed. One by one they crawled forward. They climbed over her legs, burrowed under her arms, pressed against her sides. They crawled beneath her coat, seeking the heat that meant survival, the warmth that their dying world could no longer provide. Nora sealed her coat as much as she could, creating a cocoon of shared body heat. 5 alien creatures, each one impossible according to science, each one now depending entirely on her. The shivering was the worst part. Not her own shivering, though that came soon enough, but theirs. Their small bodies convulsed against her, their fear palpable. Nora began to hum, some half-remembered lullaby from her childhood on Earth. She felt ridiculous, but the vibration in her chest seemed to calm them. Tavi, the smallest, had wedged itself directly against her sternum, right over her heart. She could feel its rapid heartbeat beginning to slow, to stabilize. The warmth of her body, the stubborn, inefficient, wonderful warmth of human biology, was saving its life. Hours passed. Nora's legs went numb first, then her fingers. She couldn't move without disturbing the cubs, so she didn't move. When her body began to shut down non-essential functions to preserve her core temperature, she fought against the drowsiness that came with it. Sleep meant death, for her and for them. She thought about humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans weren't the strongest species, not by far. The Korthax could lift 3 times what any human could. Humans weren't the smartest. The cerebral collective had computed faster-than-light equations while humanity was still banging rocks together. Humans weren't even the most numerous, barely making a dent in the galactic population statistics. But humans were stubborn. Humans were adaptable. And humans, for reasons that other species found baffling, formed bonds with creatures that weren't their own kind. The Galactic Coalition had warned Earth about this tendency. "Your emotional attachments to non-human life forms is inefficient," the Cerebral Collective had stated during humanity's application for membership. "It will compromise your survival." Nora smiled through her frozen lips. Maybe they were right. Here she was, possibly dying, to save 5 alien cubs that she'd met hours ago, but she couldn't stop. Tavi stirred against her chest, making a small sound somewhere between a purr and a chirp. The other cubs had stopped shivering. They slept now, warm and safe, pressed against the stubborn human who refused to let them freeze. Nora's vision began to blur. The cold was winning, but she could feel their heartbeats strong and steady. Whatever happened to her, she'd given them time. Maybe enough time for the storm to pass. Maybe enough time for them to return to wherever their den was. She'd done what humans do best. She'd held on when letting go would have been easier. She'd protected the vulnerable when protecting herself would have been smarter. The sound of engines cut through her fading consciousness. Light swept across the cave mouth. Her rescue beacon had worked. They'd found her. Strong hands pulled her from the cave, but Nora fought them. "The cubs," she managed through frozen lips. "Don't let them wake." The rescue team's medic, a Korthax named Gren, who'd worked with humans before, understood immediately. He'd seen this particular human madness before. While others treated Nora for severe hypothermia, Gren carefully extracted each sleeping cub, wrapping them in emergency thermal blankets. Later, when Nora recovered in the medical bay, the rescue commander visited her. He was human too, which made his exasperation more knowing than angry. "You nearly died," he said. "They would have died," Nora replied. He sighed. "Nora, you sat motionless in -40-degree weather for 17 hours to keep 5 alien creatures warm. Creatures that, according to our surveys, shouldn't even exist on this moon." 18 hours, she corrected. "And now they do exist." "We'll have to update the surveys." The commander shook his head, but he was smiling. "The xenobiologists are going crazy. They've never seen this species before. They're calling them Tavi's kin, after the little one. The one that wouldn't leave your side even after we rescued you." Nora felt warmth spread through her chest. The good kind of warmth this time. "They're intelligent, social, they understand protection and trust. Like humans," the commander said, "like humans." Nora agreed. The Galactic Coalition would file another report about humanity's inefficient emotional bonds. They'd note with their characteristic bewilderment that a human had risked death to save creatures with no strategic value, no genetic relation, and no previous contact. They'd never understand that this wasn't a weakness. It was what made humanity human. And in the cold caves of Frost 7, 5 small lives survived because one human woman sat still so they wouldn't wake. Because she refused to let them face the cold alone. Because that's what humans do.